Live Wild's Connection Matters podcast, bringing together heart-centred, nature-connected, curious people who share the inquiry: how can we create a connected and meaningful way of living that brings more health, happiness and growth to our world? My name is Leona Johnson and I am your host.
Hello beautiful humans, welcome back to episode 4 of Connection Matters podcast. So grateful to be here, so grateful to be able to speak to you wherever you are. I'm grateful today for all the practices that help me stay centered and grounded because the world is going crazy. I don't really know what to say about that, but it feels like the things that we're talking about here are more needed than ever before. Thinking about connection and finding meaning and purpose in the world, and looking at ways that we can navigate through these tumultuous times in a good way so that we can come out the other side of this in a healthy, balanced, holistically well society is my prayer for today. I'm going to be speaking to Bart de Greeve today. He is the spark energy behind the new online platform called Bright Sky. Bright Sky is an organisation that is been set up for change makers and facilitators, therapists, coaches, people who are doing good work in the world to come together as a community and to receive support and to have a hosting platform for their offerings. And it's a new organisation, but it's very exciting. I'm really pleased that Bart agreed to speak to me. He's really open and passionate and has a lot of experience in business and therapeutic work and community building and spirituality and a lot of the things that we talk about here, so it felt like it made sense. I'm also a founding member of Bright Sky and I'm really excited to know that it's coming into the world. Just loved their mission and their tagline. I'll read it out to you actually because it's such a lovely vision. Meaningful connections through shared purpose. A platform and community for practitioners, change makers and ethical entrepreneurs. We have a bold vision that is rooted in community and the desire to help future generations thrive within healthy planetary ecosystems. Bright Sky membership supports holistic health and well-being practitioners, community builders, earth protectors and ethical entrepreneurs to build meaningful and thriving livelihoods within a supportive community. It's so lovely. It's such an inspiring vision, and I know that they are pulling on the principles of permaculture and the 8 Shields, which is a holistic model of connection-based practices, ways to organise and design things so that they include all of the elements that are needed to have a thriving and balanced and healthy organisation or event. And they're really drawing on grounded and earth-based principles as a way of designing how they grow, and it's very, very needed right now. Business needs to move away from its profit-driven aims and think more about how business can be in service to the world. That includes the humans that invest, but also all the other beings that are affected by the things that we do. So I'm really excited about Bright Sky and where it goes. It's very new and it's not been fully launched yet. So it's nice to be able to let people know about it here, and you'll be able to get all the links to it in the show notes if you want to find out more and know that they're still accepting new members. So before we start, I'll explain a little bit about this recording. It's a bit unusual because when I first called Bart, we weren't going to speak that day. He asked if we could postpone. He was moving house and was doing childcare, as a lot of us are at the moment. And then we launched into conversation, and it became apparent that after about 20 minutes that we were in a good conversation and that it was worth continuing. So luckily I was recording, so we have the conversation and we continued to speak for the rest of the hour. So hopefully it's not too distracting to hear the references to staying or going or things like this. Also, I need to mention that the audio is not great. On Bart's side, it breaks up a little bit at times, and there is a 2-minute section which is quite bad, but stick with it. We felt like we would leave it in because the content was worth listening to, but know that when you get to that point it does pass and improve, and yeah, sorry about that. If you are new to the podcast and you haven't subscribed yet, then I'll ask you to subscribe, because that's the best way of getting our episodes straight into your inbox. And also, if you like the podcast and you listen on iTunes or Apple, it's really useful if you can rate us and leave a review, and it helps more people to listen to these conversations. Also, if you like the podcast and you'd like to support us, if you'd consider supporting us at patreon.com/Connection Matters Podcast. And I'd be so hugely grateful at this stage for anyone who's able to contribute a little bit. And just generally so grateful for this opportunity and that I get to share this with all of you. I think that's us. So this is Bart de Greeve. I usually do a little check-in with people, what's going well and what's challenging, and then we share some gratitude. How would you like to start with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little check-in, and then we can talk about what the podcast intention is and what we might talk about next week or when it's good for you.
I'm mostly good, but it's always a mixed bag in my life. And the main thing at this moment is just balancing being here with my son whilst processing all the change which is happening. You know, it's like there's so much change happening in Bright Sky. There's so much change happening in my personal life by moving into a new home. There's a lot of change happening for my son with the school, moving to a new home. And that makes it not always that easy to be present for a while when I have all these things in my field going on and kind of pulling me, and my son knocking on the door when I'm in talks, you know, all these type of stuff. So yeah, I feel generally very blessed with what is actually happening in the world. I see there's a lot of silver linings. I see in Bright Sky we are taking huge steps. We kind of brought it back to something very simple, not being able to pay people for a while, because all of our members are affected. Most of our members are affected because they cannot do retreats, they cannot do individual sessions, and that all gets passed on. Now, I've had the fortunate experience of having gone through this already. You know, so in 2008, when the recession hit, I was a retired millionaire. I was half of the time in South Africa, and I lost everything. And it's been an excruciating journey. And at the same time, brought the biggest blessings in my life. So what it brings to me right now is that the emotional experience of what a lot of people go through by being threatened what they have and the possibility of losing everything, I've been through it, and I came out on the other side much better.
Wow.
than I was. And one of the biggest things, I reckon, is that when I was successful, the only purpose in my company was to make money. There was no deeper meaning. There was nothing which drove me from my heart. I was just trying to do what the world told me. And that being ripped away and falling apart actually brought me much closer to myself. So now I feel like, oh wow, everything which has happened, it's not the first time I'm experiencing. So I'm, what I say to people often is like, everything can fall apart, but this is still here. This is still here. There's like a superficial layer over the world where we have collectively bought into that if that goes away, everything falls apart. But it's ridiculous. It's like a big illusion. So being in a place now where I have all these challenges, but I am driven by something which means a lot to me, makes such a difference. And that's what I'm so grateful for. And it's almost like I have been through it, so I'm able to hold what needs to be held in Bright Sky for Bright Sky to really come into the world and to really navigate all the edges. So there's a mix of gratitude, there's a mix of creativity, in the mix is that I feel lost at times and I have no idea what is next for me. It's like we go into this whole process of transition, and I can be busy from the mind and start doing, but I feel I have an opportunity to actually take stock myself and to slow down a little bit because of all the other people who are picking up pieces in Bright Sky and bringing stuff that I was holding but wasn't able to bring myself. And just being busy with just staying present with the discomfort of not entirely knowing what to do next and seeing so many things I could do. And it's a little bit the mix between doing and being. It's like I want the doing to come from the inside. I don't want it to come from the mind. And there's moments in it where I do very little. And I'm really aware I'm doing little because I don't know what to do and there's a discomfort in it. But when I can hold space for it, I can stay with it. Suddenly something comes and everything made sense. Everything makes sense why I wasn't able to move because it was simply not the right energetic movement for me. And the patience that is required to just stay with it. So I'm in an extraordinary time of my life where Bright Sky is taking off, becoming something beyond anything I could dream of. And my dream was already big. And it's going beyond that, like into an area where I think like I'm looking at it with awe and I think, wow, how are we going to hold this all together? And one of the things I recognized last week in Bright Sky is the collective fear of getting it wrong. We're representing 108 partners. We're representing the founding members. It is a responsibility. A lot of people have strong opinions, strong voices, come with questions. And the reality is we are figuring it out along the way. And when you figure it out along the way, then mistakes become learning opportunities, but there are a lot of learning opportunities. And certain learning opportunities, you look at it and you think like, oh, wow, we need to do it different, which can be considered as losing money. It can be considered, it's like you do something, try it, get a lot of information, which shows you what to do next. But then from the outside, people can look at, wow, why did you do that? Because we had to start somewhere, we had to do something. We had to start somewhere, and it's happening. But I've seen it very clearly this week. There was an anxiety with us collectively in the team. Are we fulfilling the expectations? And I'm trying to bring it back that it's not about other people's expectations, even though we have a responsibility towards all the stakeholders. It's about what are we doing in the essence of Bright Sky? What are we doing? We're trying to create something new. Who can expect from us that we get everything right? It's the same as in life when we grow up. Who can expect of our children that they don't make mistakes? You have to make mistakes. And then when you're representing 108 partners and money comes into it, it becomes quite interesting. Interesting, it's like all the trips that people have around money that can be projected on it. We got somebody who became a founding member for £222 with a whole list of things that they expected to get, and we haven't launched yet. We will get there. And I realized for me the fear is there of being made wrong, because I have no issue with I thrive in an area where we are exploring and trying things out. I find it exciting. So I don't have the association with a learning opportunity being a mistake. I just enjoy the learning opportunity and can be very grateful for that. Other people don't have that. And we work with people and we work with money, all the projections. It becomes so fascinating and complicated at times.
Money's complicated, isn't it? The way we identify with it and the way we cling to it and all of that. Yeah, I can see that, how tricky that must be.
But we're doing awesome,
I love that. I mean, I love the way that you you talk about it. Ever since the first conversation that we had, you were always really positive and really excited and really passionate and real and authentic, and brought your whole self. And that's one of the things that really drew me in to the whole project. So
now that last thing you say, that is what brings the growth.
Yeah.
That is where the magic happens, you know. It's like there's moments where I'm in it with everything I have. This is so important to me. And I've had, for sure, 3 moments in Bright Sky in the last year where I thought, what is my role going to be? I see these things. I see all this energy with all these people, all these concerns, all these worries, all this excitement, all this passion, all these dreams. And a few times I had to just give it back to existence. And I've had a few times where I completely fell apart, completely was lost, you know, crying for days in every meeting. I don't know what to do. I cannot trust myself. And I had to go through that to really receive what I perceive as guidance, which comes from inside for me. You know, it comes from inside. It's very much connected to my heart, to my spirit. But not knowing what to do, not feeling the guy, it's been excruciating. And then the fear of things falling apart and handing it back to spirit. Mm-hmm. Then when I done that, something dropped in me and something dropped in the field. And all right. But excruciating at times.
Before I start chatting, you'd prefer to record another time. How long do you want to chat today? Because, you know, if you've got things to get on.
When I'm talking now, I think, oh shit, we should have pressed record. It was lovely, and I love talking. For there's something happening. I always, because I've been talking with so many people, I'm recognizing what is just happening in between me and the other person, based on what moves through me and what I voice. Mm-hmm. And wow, that sounded good, you know. Not like, oh, that sounded good, but no, like that felt good when I spoke it. You know, it's more that's where I'm coming from.
Well, you should know I am recording. It records automatically when I begin. So we can either carry on or, just aware that I don't want to take up your time today if you've got things to be doing.
It's just public speaking or putting myself out as a person is an edge for me. And it's an edge for me which is connected to personal insecurity. And it's an edge for me connected to what I don't want. I don't want to become something through Bright Sky that I don't want. You know, I don't want. I like to be. I like to be under the radar. I don't like to be publicly. You know, I like to go through life in my own way, guided by whatever feels right. And I struggle with the fact that as the founder of Bright Sky, I'm becoming a face.
Yeah. Well, I share that fear of public speaking, believe it or not, even though I've just started the podcast. It's actually a bit of a practice that I'm undertaking in order to face that, because for years I've kept my own voice to myself and haven't allowed myself to be seen. And I think part of me has felt that by collecting the voices of all the many people who've influenced the way I think and the way I act, I'm speaking through them. But obviously through doing that, a lot of myself is coming through and it's been a fantastic opportunity to really be with that. But I really understand that not wanting to be the forefront of things and at the same time wanting to be able to share your passions.
Yeah, and what works for me is that when I speak in situations like this, when I talk about Bright Sky, I'm representing Bright Sky. I don't talk on behalf of myself, you know, and that makes it for me that is the place where I found, all right, like this I can do it. I'm talking on behalf of Bright Sky, which means for me I'm talking on behalf of the spirit that moves through Bright Sky. But I don't want to be. How do I say it? You know, there's this on one hand, on one side of the coin is admiration, you know, like that, and then on the other side of the coin is like you're doing it wrong, and they're both connected.
Yeah.
And if I allow myself to get nourished from the admiration, then I'm setting myself up by getting the other side of the coin as well. That's something somehow how I see it, and I don't want either one of it, because people might end up projecting something on me which is not me, whether they put me down or put me up. It doesn't really matter. And when people are sincerely touched or moved by what I share, that comes in. But it's like when I'm talking from heart to heart with people, and people are getting touched, and I'm getting touched, I love it. I love it. But when I become and I have already become the fire starter of Bright Sky. I've rejected the name the founder, because all of us are the founders. That's how I want it to be. That's how it, from my experience, needs to be. It cannot be about me. It's very dangerous for Bright Sky, as well for me personally, for it to become about me. I want to stay miles away from that. So it's like navigating, how can I share my passion? How can I share what is really meaningful for me without getting too much drawn into this? What do people think of me, if they're putting me up or putting me down? And it's a mix of a fragile part inside myself, that somehow I'm vulnerable for other people's opinions, even though I don't want to. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know if that's true, because what my son thinks matters to me, what my friends thinks matters to me. So of course I'm affected somehow, but it's part of my journey to find my way. How can my journey, I think that's a really good one for me to see. How can my journey leads to a simple life?
Yes, that's an interesting one, isn't it? And we're getting a glimpse of what life is without all of the trappings, without all of the external expectations, the fear of missing out, the constant meetings, arrangements, busyness, having to keep moving and coming in. I mean, this is my experience. Obviously, the first week of lockdown was pretty scary and dramatic and intriguing, and I was very curious about where it was going to lead. But my personal circumstances were also pretty chaotic, and it meant for quite a trial by fire moving into this. But ever since we've got into the flow of it, I've found that, wow, how life could actually be when you don't have to rush around at 40 to 70 miles an hour in a metal box, and you walk places and you really get to know the local environment. I'm very lucky. I live in a very beautiful area. So yeah, I know that's not the same for everybody, but when you really don't have to rush your children out of the door at 8:30 every morning and dragging them, telling them to be quicker, and having to be in that relationship, but when we're all able to feel into things that we want to do and actually do them because they're what our hearts want to do, and trying to enjoy each other and enjoying each other and being in the garden and growing food and making bread and doing all of those things that I would never do because I'm always so busy. And actually, I feel for me, it's been a little bit like becoming. This word becoming keeps coming back to me. Who am I outside of all of the trappings? And I've had an incredible internal journey. I love the business that I run, but like so many others, we've had to just put that to one side and wait, because our business is outside, working with people in nature, in groups. So, who knows when we'll be back doing that again. And my initial instinct was to run as fast as I could, the same as I saw lots of other people doing, to turn what we do into online content and want to do online sharing circles and create resources for people to do outdoors. And, those weren't bad ideas, but there were a lot of people doing those things. And really what I needed to do was to go inside and take the break that was being given to me. And that's what has been such a blessing. And through that, this podcast, which has been on my dream list for about 2.5 years after I did a big quest in the very north of Scotland into how I can get my voice out into the world. Yeah, this has come into fruition. And the reason I felt it was a good idea is because I have so many connections over the years. I've been doing gathering so much that I feel has been nourishing and shaping my experience to live a more connected lifestyle in the world that we currently live, and bringing those people together to actually talk about that. What is it that we need to do now as individuals and as a collective of aware heart-centered, nature-connected people who are really curious about how we can be in a more connected and healthy way. So, yeah, here we are. I've been curious about Bright Sky. I was right from the beginning. I wonder if now would be a good time for you to talk about what Bright Sky is and who Bright Sky is for and how it came about.
First of all, what came to me when you were talking is like, how well do we know ourselves actually? You know, how well do I know myself actually? All these messages that I give myself, I'm like this, I'm like that, and you know, like I think we all do. You know, it's like kind of defining who we are to make sense of experience. When the virus came in, I felt so many emotions in a couple of weeks so strongly, from chaos to shock. I thought there was a lot of fear in the field, and suddenly I had a few days where it was very difficult to move, and I needed to actually acknowledge that I was in a state of freeze. And my fear was coming from other people being scared, and that scaring me, which is it's just the same. It's just the energy of fear, and then having very strong experiences. Just trying to make sense of the experience and of the energy that was moving through me, all leading to like, how well do I know myself actually? You know, it is an amazing opportunity through not doing so much and through not trying to get away from the comfort or whatever challenging feelings, to actually know myself better. Yeah, very strong, very strong. How well do I know myself? Quite fast after that, this was followed by the sentence that came to me: no more excuses. No more excuses. All these. I've been so busy, like you were describing, rushing the kids out of the house in the morning and getting this, do the shopping, doing the school run. It's like all of it. It's like I kind of forgot where I was going with that. The question, what is Bright Sky, is about, because it is so vast. You know, Bright Sky, the way I see Bright Sky is as a living organism. It's like I planted the original seed, my original vision, my original passion for what I thought I was supposed to do has been the original seed. And the more people who have been joining Bright Sky have been influenced the vision and are influencing the direction in which we are developing. And we are blessed with having an incredible amount of people with beautiful skills who want to offer, from which a big group after the coronavirus have continued to support bringing Bright Sky into the world when we were not able to pay out anymore, because all our potential members were in shock, you know, to start with. And we felt it was insensitive to start reaching out and keep knocking on people's door for money. We more felt it was appropriate to see what actually was needed in the field. And we have been able to make that transition. I guess Bright Sky started off to be a platform to support practitioners. I have a lot of friends who are practitioners in one way or the other, and I've seen so many struggles which were quite similar, and there was nothing centralized as a resource which could help people. So you have people trying to come up with solutions for marketing or website or whatever, you know, all over the place, trying to figure, and it's such a waste of energy. Like if trying to figure something out, both of us individually, or we do it together, and whatever we find as a positive outcome, as a solution, is available for the whole collective, you know, and that's happening everywhere. Then we're not repeating the same quest on internet, Google questions, how does this work, Facebook posts, and that gets lost. So that was my original drive, to support practitioners. And the more people got involved, I remember when I was starting that I came across to somebody who was tearful, who was blown away, and through that experience expanded my vision. So my vision was a little bit like this, and I wanted to create something. I came to the UK, and this particular interaction made it like, poof, like, wow, actually what I'm working on can be so much bigger than I can imagine, because that's what is so strongly reflected to me. And So the inspiration that I brought was picked up and then was reflected back and inspired me. And it's been continuously to go like this. So at this moment, we have grown into an organization with a vision where we are bridging the professional business skills with spiritual community, where the professional business skills are in service of the community, which has been my learning of being very successful, but having no purpose outside making money, and that being like really, really damaging, actually, like really the opposite of nourishing, the opposite of what you want. I was successful in what it brought me was totally not what felt as success for me or felt as what was nourishing for me. So Bright Sky is growing and developing. We are gonna allocate 50% of all the profit to community projects, and the community project sector. What the aspect in community projects. The potential is amazing. We have relationships with organizations that are planting trees. We had 4 tree planting events in December with the winter solstice, planting the first 2,000 trees. But it was not so much about just planting the trees. It's about bringing people together, connecting with the earth, praying, finding places in ourselves which feel so nourishing whilst we have our hands in the ground and in the earth. And that community feeling, that shared sense of importance. So the sentence, meaningful connection through shared purpose, is a really prominent one for me in Bright Sky. It kind of catches the essence of the spirit of what we're trying to create. If we are connecting with something that really means something to us and we're working with that, we instantly get nourished. We're instantly following our individual purpose, and we can combine that by aligning with people who have visions who are resonating with what we want to do. We are creating we have created already a beautiful series of e-courses, which is going to be way beyond just supporting practitioners. Bright Sky is not now just for practitioners anymore. It's for practitioners, it's for earth protectors, it's for change makers, it's for community builders, it's just for like-minded people. And the service that we want to offer, I was working on a piece of content yesterday, and what actually is the right wording for me personally, what our target audience is humanity. What we want to bring is on behalf of everyone individually and of us collectively. It's for humanity. And if we can support humanity to have a more wholesome relationship where there is humility about our place into this magical scheme of madness, craziness, beauty, grace, magic, all of that. It's like we are such a small particle and we've blown ourselves up so much. So humility and respect is such an important part in there. Now I know you're very into the nature connection and all of that. We are bringing in permaculture principles in finance, permaculture principles in business. Trying to figure that out ourselves once again, not getting it right straight away, but we are addressing the questions. We are trying to create something where what we are doing supports the shift in the direction of where we are collectively, so that our children have a better world, their children have a better world, their children have a better world. We really need to start planting those seeds for that to kind of evolve more into the world. But if that can be picked up by enough people to create like some kind of balance or tipping point, as people who are talking about 144,000 people creates like really a shift in consciousness. It's beautiful thoughts, beautiful numbers as well. But
I love that. The numbers thing has been quite a big thing about Bright Sky. Where does that come from?
It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
It's I cannot tell you what the spiritual meaning of any number is, but when I'm organizing things where there is spirit and where is structure and I'm mapping it out. So I can show you, if I can read something which I was working on yesterday, which is going to all be edited by other people so that it becomes a collective document. But I was looking at like what are 7 points that can describe Bright Sky, what we stand for. And it turned out that it's 7 points where the first point is split up in 3 and all the other ones are split up in 7. And when that happens, I feel like something is landing. It's almost like we're bringing all these aspects, and they don't instantly gel into one beautiful puzzle. There's rough edges. And by working with the numbers, I feel like I'm energetically polishing something which then falls in place.
Yeah, nice. And so 144,000 people, what's that about? You mentioned that when the collective energy of that many people comes together.
It comes from a very dear friend who is busy with organizing prayer circles, where she's really inviting people to see the world as they want it and guiding it through a process. And she made me aware of the numbers in that, and I don't know, there's a certain percentage of the population when they wake up to a certain level of consciousness, which is heart opening and makes them more caring for their environment as well, that will support a global shift. And they talk about a critical point, and if 144,000 people are really sitting in meditation and visualizing a beautiful new reality, which is safe, where there is equality, where there is respect, where it's run by honor, where it's run by truth. Because it's clear that that's not happening. We're so confused about what's happening because we cannot trust the information outside. We cannot trust the information that is brought towards us always.
Yeah. And we've not been taught to trust the information that comes from within, or even understand, even know that that's a possibility.
I think it goes even further, and that goes all the way back to the Catholic Church saying that you can only go to heaven through the priest. It's like we have not just not learned how to trust our own inner guidance. It has been made wrong, and because it doesn't fit with the agendas of the powers in play. And I'm not so busy with all of that. I'm aware of a lot, but my focus is in Bright Sky, and Bright Sky is very intentionally positioned in a neutral place where we are not in opposition with anything, where we're not fighting. We are trying to be a place where all different types of people from different backgrounds, from different tribes, from different families feel excited to move towards. And we're trying to celebrate diversity, but that has to be balanced out with respect. It's like, we are consciously positioning us in a place where we're not fighting with anything. So we are nothing of making the powers in place be aware of what goes wrong or protesting against 5G, which, there's so many things that we can put our intention in order to keep Bright Sky safe and to keep Bright Sky clean. We are not in opposition with anything. So it's not that I don't support any projects which are happening in those areas, especially when it comes to trying to reveal the truth, to create truthful information that we can collectively trust. Very much in support of that, but not through Bright Sky. Through Bright Sky, we are trying to turn away from everything that we don't like or that we don't agree with, and trying to use that energy to create something forward which is positive.
I love the idea that people, I think generally before any of the COVID crisis happened, people were and are looking for something other to help guide them into something more meaningful and presence, and becoming aware that, we have choice. If we don't have choice in what happens to us externally, we have choice about how we respond to things. And there are a lot of people who are wanting that support and guidance into how to deepen that and how to grow with that. And now that the COVID crisis that has happened, it feels like, when we're in times of hardship, even if that brings despair and difficulty and, brings everyone to breaking point, that's the time where often people will look inside and look for the support. And even if it hasn't brought you to despair and crisis and poverty and destruction, if it brings you to the spaciousness that we haven't had, then all the more we're going to have time to actually nurture and grow what's within us. I feel like it's going to be a catalyst, whatever way it's gone for individuals. It's going to be a catalyst for change. Obviously, there are going to be lots of external inputs that mightn't be what you would ideally want. But as I said before, we have choice in that, don't we? and where to look, and who we collect with, and who we move forwards with.
Yeah, how we choose to use our energy, how we choose to live our lives. We have choices at any moment. But there's something very interesting when you talk about the despair. What I often say to people is that actually the original seed of Bright Sky has been born from my frustration and despair. That's where it came from, not fitting in, not knowing what is not sitting right with me in this world and how it's run, and not having any role models that were available to me in certain times, and just like trying, like I said, I became very successful, but there was no purpose besides making money. And it has been harmful. That has been harmful for me. That has been harmful for the people that I've been working with at that time. It's even been harmful for the planet. I was a publisher. We were just making magazines and newspapers, all kinds of stuff, just to sell the advertisements. But we were using trees for it. It's like all kinds of. There were so many areas where we were just simply depleting resources, and it didn't work for me. And when everything fell apart, I was in one of the deepest crises in my life, where my son was taken by my ex-partner to the UK, and I was in Holland. And that moment just made it felt as strong as the energy with COVID right now. It's like there was a moment where I could just make the choice from my gut feeling, because whatever I was trying was so obviously not working for me. And I needed to go to that depth of my despair to make the decision, like, it's enough. Where I need to be for myself is be with my son. He was 2.5 at the time. I need to be with him. And it's just like all the excuse my language, the mind fucks, the fears about, it just wasn't important anymore. It was there, but the importance of needing to be with my son was so much, much more important, and gave me the courage to just really shift completely, trust. I wasn't even busy with trusting. I just needed to be with him. I don't think there was even a consideration of trust. What I have been trying, which was depleting everything inside me, wasn't working. It just needed to change. And that point where you hit rock bottom, where the desperation is there, the fear is there, all of this, that's where such an incredible shift can happen. And what I've realized is often it's easier for what you really fear to actually happen. It's easy for it to actually happen, because my company fell apart. So many things were happening that my mind told me I could never deal with, I could never handle, I could never find solutions and be there for my son. So much was happening. But when it actually happens, you deal with it. And this is, sorry, I know you were going to say something, but there's something I wanted to say earlier as well. What is happening for many of us now with the COVID crisis, isn't it is this not what we have been praying for? Not the COVID crisis, but what we speak about, the slowing down, the connecting with what is meaningful. I'm seeing much closer to my heart what is important for me. I'm not looking out so far anymore. It's my son. It's, his mother who took him to the UK is now one of my best friends. It's like, what a healing, what a beauty, what a love.
I asked a question on my social media a few weeks ago. It was, if you could keep one thing out of this COVID crisis, one thing that's emerged in your life, what would it be? And obviously you can imagine that list, because it was, there's no traffic, the air feels fresh, you can hear the birds, I spend more time with my children, I've got a chance to actually make healthy food, we're all speaking together in the street, we've got a WhatsApp group with the street and the community. I'm suddenly aware of local food and the lack of it, and where our food comes from, and how vulnerable our systems are, and all of these collective responses were so beautiful.
That's why I said it's a mean question to limit it to one.
Most people didn't.
At what I want to take with this and integrate in my life, it's a whole list. My God. And I had a thought, and I don't have the time and energy to be busy with it, but I thought to kind of set up some kind of action where we encourage everyone to just not take the car for 2 days, and all these type of things. Fly less, it's like all the things that were already in the field. If we see how easy it actually is, I'm not saying there's no complications and there's no drama and grief, with people passing and getting sick and all of that. And there's a lot of fear and people losing their companies and all of it. But if you go from where we were to where we need to go, it cannot be without suffering and without pain and challenging transitions. And actually, the way we are transitioning now, in a way, feels really soft for me. It feels really gentle. It could have been much worse. And it also shows that what the politicians tell us, and I don't, this is on a personal title, just my personal feeling, because I don't want Bright Sky to be busy with anything like that. But it just shows how easy we can actually change the destructive course and save the planet, which sounds always like such a big thing. But look at how the less flights and the less traffic is already impacting the environment.
Who would have ever thought that we could stop international flying in the way that has happened? I just, it just baffles me. It's amazing. And it does enable you to imagine the world and dare to imagine the world that you never dared to imagine before. Actually, when is that ever going to happen? And how would that ever actually happen? And it's happened. It's happened for. Like
you said with your WhatsApp group in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Has it brought neighborhood closer?
I've wanted to do that since I moved into this house where I am now, which is about 3.5 years ago. I had an idea, let's do some sort of street party, and obviously busy, never did it. Also slightly liked the anonymity of not being known so well in my street. But obviously the reality, once it really kicked in, that there were, half of the street either alone or in the older category, so they wouldn't be able to go out, and it felt like the right thing to do to set up this WhatsApp group. And I know lots and lots of others have done it. And it's fantastic. We've been swapping seeds and swapping recipes and leaving out novels on the wall for people to collect, and, picking up shopping for each other. And soon we're going to have a little quiz, an actual quiz, where people sit outside on the street and do a little bit of a pub quiz. And, we're all different. Everybody's from different backgrounds. And yet this is the connection that I've craved and the community that I've craved for my children, for them to be known and seen and for them to know the people around them. And we would have never had that because people don't stop, do they? We're all busy with our own lives. We've talked about doing a street composting scenario where we all start collectively generating soil, which I think is one of the things the world needs most, and just bringing that consciousness to where our waste goes, and more opportunities for us to talk to each other. And I love that.
The amount of gardens that are created in the last weeks, man.
Yeah.
My God, And it's again, it's not just the food. It's like putting the hands in the air. It's like all of it around it. Beautiful. I saw a message of a friend who is offering in his local community to just go into their garden and make a veggie garden for them. It's like these type of initiatives, because part of Bright Sky has also been my personal exploration of what does community mean to me. And I didn't have in the society we live in, where I grew up, I've never felt that nourishing sense of community. And through that, I've always been looking further out, like-minded people. But actually, it's like when the coronavirus started, I remember the first time I was in the supermarket, like getting a big load, because everybody told me, Bart, you need more food and all of that. I was walking through the supermarket and I felt a different connection to the elderly people, to the vulnerable people, and this willingness for most of us to actually stay at home and make the personal sacrifices because we care. You couldn't think of it, but if there would be some kind of genius spirit being looking at what does the world actually need to wake up, it could have been COVID almost, And once again, I don't want to take anything away from all the suffering. I see it's both there. But to make that transition where flights are going from every country all over the place, all this oil is getting, they're going into fracking. It's like all that madness to make that transition is quite something as a global community.
It is. I read somewhere that they're actually paying $37 a barrel to take oil because they've got nowhere to store. And I just thought, well, how on earth have we got into that situation?
But it goes further, because from common sense, if you have no question for your product anymore. Stop producing.
Yeah.
Have your stock and stop producing. But they keep pumping up oil. They keep doing. It's like the madness in it. It's like common sense is kind of lost when it comes to those type of movements.
Yeah. It's not very responsive. We don't have a responsive system, do we? And I think that's one of the things. Whatever happens from here on in, we need to be responsive. We need to be able to act collectively, but in small groups and locally, because the world is going to change. It is already changing very fast, but it's going to change at an exponential rate, really, for better and for worse, hopefully for better. But, we've got to be realistic about the current scenario. And I feel it's exciting times, but we'll be very ill prepared if we don't think about how to tune in and listen to ourselves and how to really connect, connection being that we have to ourselves, to each other, and to the world around us and the natural environment. And I think that's one thing that people have been very cut off from, haven't they, in recent decades, just, not having the opportunity or the time or the reason, really. If you don't have to go out and chop wood for your burner or in all weathers, you don't do it. So you're not in touch with all the senses.
I'm very hopeful because I've been through the recession, the financial recession in 2008, which we collectively went through, but it didn't become something that a lot of people could clearly relate to. And the changes were in the hands of the banks and the governments, etc. And as soon as the shock was over, they kind of continued with what they were doing. And we cannot influence. We can actually influence that by how we spend our money, but it's more outside ourselves. And now with this situation, the people on the ground in their houses, they feel it very differently than they feel the impact of the financial recession. And so many people are acknowledging actually the blessings and the gifts that come from slowing down and having a chance to look at how am I living my life? How are we living our lives collectively? And because it's now really impacted the people on such a deep embodied experiential way where suddenly everyone is aware, oh, wow, this sense of security that they give us is not really there. This can happen. Something else can happen. We knew it, but we kind of kept it away. And now we're going through it. And actually, the warning that it comes with could have been a lot stronger, could have been a lot more dramatic. It could have been, and it can be in the future. And now we have an opportunity to start preparing ourselves in a different way, which includes how are we spending our money? How are we using our resources?
Yeah. Having been someone who's really been through losing everything and that difficult time that you described in 2008 and after, you've obviously picked yourself up and created a completely new version of life, or you've progressed through life. What was it that helped you do that? And what do you think it is that people should be doing now in order to heal, in order to move forwards in a good way?
I think one of the main things, for me that people would benefit a lot from when what they do is to be with what has the most energy and to be curious, to be with what has the most energy in their own experience and be curious, look at it again, catch where you've told yourself you're like this and that, so you can put it in a box and you don't have to look at it anymore. We have an unprecedented time. This is extraordinary, the opportunities that are in there for us individually. And if we can be with what has the most energy, if that is fear, be with the fear. And if you can really be with the fear, if that has the most energy, somewhere the energy will transform, will change into something else, which you can kind of follow energetically to become more aware of how it works inside. Like I said, how well do we know ourselves actually? So if there's so much in me which I'm still figuring out and still trying to understand, then how well do I know someone else? And if we can be with the most, if we can be and spend time with what has the most energy. And I don't mean like if fear has the most energy, then I'm in the corner in my bed and I'm scared and I'm not coming out of my room for the rest of the month. Then it's kind of stuck. It needs to move. And part of the movement can happen through sharing. part of the movement that happens for me is exposing my insecurities, is exposing my struggles. And within that, kind of exposing my rawness as a human being. I don't have it all together. I have certain qualities, certain gifts, my experience, and the way my mind and my heart all work together that has something that, I can really be happy about and really be excited about. But there's so many aspects in my life. I'm walking around in the dark, just trying to find my way. But by sharing that and having people around me who can relate with that experience without needing to fix me, because they just can acknowledge, sometimes I really don't know what to do with myself. But if we can be with what has the most energy, then we can learn from it. So this is an incredibly beautiful time to be curious, to let go of all these fixed ideas we have about ourselves. And if we can start with ourselves and we can start understanding the mystery of this life, we're living a mystery. Who knows? It's like every book we write about it is looking back, making sense of our own experience. But whatever is forward is just as much as a mystery. It's never going to change. And if we can have curiosity there, then we, out of all of that, we can learn to be more honest with ourselves. If I'm totally honest with myself in any given moment, it's so easy to be totally honest with you. But if I struggle to be honest with myself because I'm afraid to be judged, or I'm ashamed about something, or I'm scared of somebody, or all of that, if I struggle to be totally honest with myself, I cannot be more honest with you than I can be with myself. And if you look at what is happening now, connection is reestablished everywhere, or new connections are made. And what we are seeing is that we are misinformed through the media and we don't know what to trust. So that's really unsettling. It's really unsettling that you see all this news coming by and you just simply don't know what to trust. So within this extraordinary time, we can reach out to each other and just share our humanness. But we can only share with the people around us in our circle, the people we are holding hands with. We can only share what we are willing and able to meet within ourselves.
So the sharing is one part, and then if you're part of a two, like we are now, the listening is the other part, isn't it? And the listening, I think for me has been something that shouted at me, listen, 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 and I saw this great meme the other day, which I thought was so beautiful. It was somebody saying, I've got a problem, rah, and the other person says, do you want comfort or do you want solutions? Do you want me to help you find solutions? And just that question, because there's nothing worse than when something's happened, you want to cry about it, you want to share about it, and then someone starts telling me, well, if you'd have only done this, and why don't you do this next time, and why, and which is a very natural, let's say, cultural norm, and the other part of it is, when you want that, you want someone's opinion, and they're just going, oh yeah, oh, and you're like, I want you to help me, but we're just that simple shift in mindset, being able to ask for what you want and need, or ask the other what they want and need, is key to everything for me. And I think you can do that as individuals, or you can do that and create spaces for that with those particular, empathy spaces, or, creative spaces, and they're not exclusive, and they, often once you've been heard and you've really felt empathized with, you have the creativity within yourself to find the solutions. But when you don't, and you know how to ask for them, that's how you bring about fast and rapid transformation. But I wonder whether we've got it in us now to create those spaces so that we can really get through this in a good way.
I mean, it comes to me back to how honest can we be to ourselves. There's a connection there, because I've been listening. I tried to listen to spirit. Spirit is moving through bright sky in that sense, that it's connecting with something to look for guidance and all of that. I've had many moments where I've been told that I need to listen. And in Bright Sky, in my life as well, and where I felt the energy moving through me was so strong that Bright Sky needed to go into that in a certain direction, or something was needed. And people came with, and I just, no, it needs to go there. So the ability to listen has not always been so strong alive for me in the process of Bright Sky. There's been many moments where I just needed to Bright Sky needed to go there. But then in the whole process, what I realized is every time when I interrupt someone, it actually feels like an act of violence, and I don't want that. And I started to give myself very strong messages, like when I do that, it's actually abusive. Because who am I to cut off somebody's energy, even though something moves through me, which feels so important for me, that I lose touch of the other person and of respectful communication and all of that. And it's been really painful. It's been really painful to see that part in me which can cut someone off because what I have to say is so important in a particular moment. And it might even be really important to say, because if you invite a lot of people to work together, then certain ideas are conflicting and you cannot do everything. You need to give direction as well. So, and then by exposing this part of myself, by sharing it, by making people aware, by being really vulnerable with it, because underneath it often is fear. It's like the fear that somebody brings it in a different, no, it needs to be, so we got so many opportunities to, through exposing and sharing honestly and not having to be the perfect picture to the outside world. No, I've had meetings where, I just had to give everything back because I was just confused. Bart, you're not listening. You're not hearing it. And and I was trying. And looking back, I wasn't listening because something was happening that really scared me. And the fear was making me try to find solutions instead of being in my own center. Something rocked me off my center. And I think if we can learn to judge ourselves, judge is the wrong word, but anyway, it's a lot softer than judge what I'm looking for, but we evaluate. Anyway, I cannot find the right word, but based on our heart and our intention, with the spaciousness to make mistakes because we don't really know what is needed, so we just need to try out things when we can honor each other's loving intention and having people, like in Bright Sky, meaningful connection through shared purpose means that there's people who care, who are drawn to that statement. It attracts people who care and who want to work together. And the more we can expose the dark little things that we don't like about ourselves, it's like all these, they then get projected and turn into judgment, and fear plays a role. So, honest communication, exposure, we're all the same. Anything which I share, which can be considered something which is deeply shameful for someone. I know that you know shame as well. I know you know despair. I know you know fear. I know you know the voice in yourself that says that you're not okay, that you're doing it wrong, that you're good enough. You have that voice. I have that voice. My son is 10 years old. He has that voice, It's already there. He has the voice of putting himself down, of not being okay.
So I'm wondering, as individuals, we need to work on that as humans, as people in the Western world as it is, and everywhere, I guess. How do we do that as an organisation? How do you do that so that we're not just replicating business as we all know it? Because if you're collecting numbers of people together from different backgrounds and perspectives, how do you do that so that you're confident? And I heard you say you're willing to make mistakes and learn from them, which is obviously a great start for an organisation to be willing to go there. But what else, or what do you think Bright Sky is doing?
When you have professional business skills meeting community, when you have strong mind meeting strong heart, basically that, the community for me is heart-centered, and the business skills are really like structure, organization, for me, where I have arrived, or where we have arrived in Bright Sky, is that it can all work as long as it's clear that the business is in service of the community. So when the business is in service of the community, then the mission, the purpose of the community is supported by the business. And I'm saying then it can all work into whatever that is going to be. I don't know, but it is the opposite of what is happening in the world, what the world is modeling us. Now you see actually that there is so much resilience economically to make changes that are good for the planet, and that it can bring people together. And kind of got lost. It happens to me when I talk about a lot of excitement. There's so many doors. Door opens, I jump into the door. Say what I'm seeing. I'm like a child. I'm telling you what I see behind that door. And then I look around and I think, where did I came from? But you asked how can we do that as an organization? Trying our best, putting the heart first. Bringing concepts in like the children's fire, which is very important.
That was the end of the conversation with Bart for today. I hope to speak to him another time, but for now, that's where we got to. And thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it inspires you to follow your path of deep connection. I love sharing the information, and I'll always share any relevant links in my show notes, so don't forget to check them out. And if you like the show, please consider supporting it at patreon.com/Connection Matters Podcast. This is where you'll find bonus episodes, giveaways, and behind the scenes content from me, as well as having my huge heartfelt thanks for any support you can give me. It really helps with the viability of the show, and you can get most of what will be on offer for as little as £3 a month. Please also subscribe on whatever app you use by clicking that little subscribe button below. That way you'll get all of the upcoming episodes straight into your device. And review on Apple Podcasts and iTunes if you can. It's so helpful to us and means that more people will get to hear the podcast. The music that opens the show is actually by my dad, Ray Johnson, and you can hear more of his music at soundcloud.com/Vision Ray.